Hello everybody. It's so nice to see you again for session number 3 of the Encode Fuel Educate series. I'm hoping you're having a very lovely Friday wherever you are, because today we are joined by Dmitry from Envio, who is going to tell us something about Envio and how to index data on Fuel in under 5 minutes using Envio. Dmitry is joining us right now. He'll be here in a couple of seconds, and then we'll kick off the event. Until then, a reminder, this is session number 3 out of 6 sessions in total. So next week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we're going to have 3 sessions more. And then after that, on the 30th of July, we're going to kick off the Encode Fuel Hackathon. Hello, Dmitry. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to the stage. Feel free to share your screen and kick off the session whenever you are ready. Until then, everybody else, you know the drill. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat on the questions tab, and Dmitry will get to them in due course. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for introduction, Neven. So before we start, I'm interested about the audience. How much do you know about Fuel, and whether, do you know what is Sway? So please write plus or minus, so I better understand who is listening to me.
So 0.
Don't worry to write minus or 0. I'll tell what it is anyways.
At least people are being honest. That's good.
Yeah, and during my presentation, please leave questions, and in the middle, I'll do a break and answer some of them, and then we might have, if you want, a small Q&A session. Yeah. Slatus world, true. Really enjoyed the language. Okay, let's wait 1 more minute and start. And I'm going to share my screen in the meantime. Unfortunately, can't see your comments this way.
Yeah, it seems like people are being a little bit shy, but we can see your screen, so I think we can probably take it off from here.
Nice. Okay, I think let's start. So today I'm going to tell you about how to index data on Fuel using the Envio framework, but also it will be not just about Envio, it will be more general. So I think you'll get some great knowledge from this session. So a little bit about me. I'm a chat dev, a script language ambassador, contributor, and ecosystem builder, creator of the fastest parsing library in the entire JavaScript ecosystem, and also now I built Envio, which is the fastest blockchain indexer on the market. Pretty cool. So let's go next. And what's an indexer and why is it needed? So for us as smart contract engineers or the app developers, there are quite heavy responsibilities because we need to care about cost of gas, so our users don't pay huge fees to just simply use our contract. Also, we need to think about how we can consume the data of our contract to build nice UIs. So it's cost of fetching data and reading it from the contract. And this is on us developers to pay. And also the availability of data, how fast we can get the data. So we can create analytics immediately whenever we ship a new protocol on chain or our users have nice developer experience, and this cost also developer incurred. So with this, when we design a contract, we really need to sit on 3 chairs at the same time. And it's not an easy feat because we need to think about gas fees, data availability, also how we can use the data off chain, and we need to put our contract design somewhere in the middle of these 3 points so we can build a really nice Web3 application which scales with time, and we don't have problems in the future with any of these points. And for this, I really empower for you to learn more about login events and indexing, because this is actually the solution for the problems. And this is what we're actually going to talk about here more. And why not simply reading from storage? And the answer is, yeah, it works and pretty well for some contracts. So for example, with Fuel, you can pretty simply define a storage and then a read method in your ABI, contract ABI, pretty much the same as you would usually do with Solidity. And then you can see on the right side of my screen that we can consume this contract data on any client, but in this case, this is a front-end application using Fuel's SDK, where we initialize a contract, and it has a type safe functions, ability to call ABI methods, and here we call the count method on the contract and get the value. So that's pretty nice and easy to use, but unfortunately it won't work for every case. And the reason is that reading from storage is limited by gas usage. And even though technically reading is free, depending on the case, but actually storing data is not. And the storage, unfortunately, usually need to be really optimized for actually storing. So we pay less gas, and it makes it less convenient for reading data and using for our UIs or other things. Also, a long response time, because every time when we call a method on chain, it should be transferred to a node and then executed, and we can't really know how much time it will take. Even though with Fuel, the situation really improved here, but it's still much less performant and predictable comparing to calling our local database, especially when it's hosted close to the client. Yes, and next, another problem I would like to highlight is that when we are reading data from the contract, we can only get the latest contract state, because literally everything got stored in the contract storage at the time when we are requesting it. And this is good for some cases, but sometimes we want to also get data, the contract state at the moment, for example, from yesterday or from a week ago. And we can't do this using this solution. And also no filters or aggregators and any other convenient ways to get transformed data directly when we request it from our client. We need to do it, all this logic, manually on the client side by ourselves. And here, as I said before, a solution, logging and indexing. So how does it look like? Here's a short diagram of indexing flow, and if you read it from left to right, we have a user which performs a transaction to a smart contract, and when transaction runs, it emits event. I would say if we're talking about EVM, but for Fuel, it actually emits receipts, or we can even call it logs. Logs data and creates receipts for these logs. And then these receipts are handled by data indexer. which like processes them in an ordered way, does like optimized batches, so it's super performant. And then it has some rules how to aggregate the data in a convenient format for reading, and stores it in a Postgres database, which is then can be accessed by any client, for example, a front end using GraphQL API, and shows process data in a UI for many users. And what's nice about this approach that we can always be sure that the Postgres data is deterministic and relates to the state of the contract, because it's produced by processing logs created by the contract itself. And since indexer is handled by our side, like by our server, we can trust it that it actually gets correct logs. So it's, even though it's not decentralized, it's a nice way to get data close to our clients and be easily to consume. So let's take a look how logs are emitted or logged in different languages. And on the left side, you can see Sway. And what's Sway? This is what I was asking in the middle of the session. Like, who knows what it is? And it's actually a programming language specifically built for full network. And it's similar to Rust, but technically it's not. And if we compare to Solidity, where they have a specific declaration for events, and then the only thing you can do with them is to specifically call emit the event and provide the data. In Sway, it's much nicer. It's much nicer because you can simply call log with any kind of data you want. So in this example, we create a struct, and it's done literally the same as you would usually create any other struct, and you can reuse any data type here. You can have like nested object or like an object of fields or tuples. So literally anything that comes to mind and what you want to log, and then you call a function called log, and it will emit a log with the provided data. So it can be even like integer, string, whatever, Boolean, but more idiomatic way is actually to create structs for events, because this way it's more convenient to work with them. So next, like the question is, if we add logs, then probably like it's also costs something, and maybe it's not really good for our contracts because users need to pay for it. But for example, here there is a tweet from the Uniswap creator asking whether they should remove logging for Uniswap v4, and actually the gas savings are only 1%. And I don't really know the exact numbers for fuel, but I assume it's also really neglectable gas cost. At least I remember looking at gas cost table, and login data was pretty much similar to reading data from storage. So yeah, and here you can see that users answered yes mostly, but the author of the poll said that it suddenly flipped at the end and probably was botted, and most of the time the answer was no. So it's the actual answer. Users don't want logs be removed from the popular contracts. And what happens when a log is emitted? And here's a sneak peek. at the block explorer, and I left a link here below. So I don't know how you're going to extract it from my presentation. Maybe I know actually. Oops. I'll just open it and send it to your chat. I'll read questions a little bit later, so I don't distract myself. So there is a nice block explorer on chain, and it's actually one of the transactions I ran myself. And how it looks like, let's go back to presentation. Yeah, so it's pretty much logging a transaction with similar code like this. And when we look at this at Block Explorer, we can see that the transaction contains some payload with operations, and operations are actually receipts using full terminology. And one of the receipts is log data, which looks like this object. And there are some fields interesting to us is RB field, which is the identifier of log. You can find it in your ABI, so to understand what's actually logged, and the data field containing the payload of the log function. And I have to admit that it's possible to manually get all these transaction receipts, and there is a function in the Fuse SDK to decode it by a log ID to a structured way, but then you won't have a type, and also it's not super performant and convenient to work with. So here the question is how we can get these logs in a nice way, and the answer is Envio. And next, I'd like to do a short demo, but first I'll do a short look at the comments you have written. Also, there's a questions section, but nobody uses it. I'll stop sharing for now.
Yeah, there were a couple of questions. One of them said, when you say deterministic, is there any kind of change to finality to some data in case of reorganization or so? Yeah,
we, as I remember, I don't remember there were reorgs for full, but if there are, we will add support for them. But for EVM indexers, we have support for reorgs. So when there is a reorg, we refetch the blocks for this.
Cool. Adam had a comment saying that you said that 1% of reducing gas fees by 1% wouldn't be enough or reason to do it. Like Adam says, like not even 10% would be a reason enough to do so. But yeah, it seems like no questions as of right now, but let's give it a couple of seconds. Oh, there's one. What's the importance of an indexer and why is logging necessary? Is it because we're trying to implement an audit trail?
Let me take a look. I see some, okay, it's here. I actually going to demo a few of the cases how you can use logging, but actually, essentially, it's a way how you can get more data about the contract execution and then use data for different means needed for you. So everything depends on the use case, and yeah, I can't necessarily tell like what will suit best for you.
Cool. That's perfectly honest and valid answer. Thank you very much. Yes. Somebody else is typing. Let's give them a couple of seconds. Yeah, like you said, like backward has a couple of use cases like block explorers, dApps, and so on. Okay, I don't think we have any more questions right now, so we can perhaps move on with the presentation.
Yeah, so next, I'm going to have a short demo of indexing Sway Farm. So Sway Farm is a contract built by Fuel Team itself, and it's a nice game. And I'm going to share your GitHub link, so maybe you want to play it. So how it looks like, we can connect our wallet to create a player, and then there is a market where we can buy seeds or sell our tomatoes, and then we can also plant tomatoes and all this using the on-chain data. And the thing is, like here, I have a contract open for it. I don't know, do you see it quite well, or should I increase it a little bit more?
You're not sharing your screen currently.
Oh my God, I forgot that I stopped sharing. Okay, I didn't show much actually. Okay, nice. I think you should see it now.
Yes, that's
so,
it.
Here's Sway Farm, like a fun game, and like market to buy seeds, sell items, plant, and everything is running through a contract. And like also, for example, Balaji, sorry if I said the name wrong, said like how can we use the indexer? And for example, what I want to do for this use case for the app, I would say, because this game is fully decentralized, is I want to create an indexer so we can build a leaderboard for this game and to know how many users are there who sold the majority of tomatoes, or for example, when a user like started playing and how much time they spent. And everything is possible with an indexer. And this is one of the use cases. But also I have to admit that, for example, I know that there are many like games are currently building on Ton. I don't know whether I'm allowed to say this name here, but yeah, actually, I talked with many developers building these games, and they are just having a Web2 approach with authentication and economy using blockchain. And for them, indexer is not really needed because they just store the data in their own database. Not they don't completely rely on like blockchain contract. But if you have a truly decentralized app, indexer will definitely be handy for you. Also, there are many use cases for DeFi, and I think I want to spend more time here telling for more examples. Probably there are many articles on the internet, and I hope you will be able to see the usefulness of indexer after my demo and apply it for your personal use case. So we have a Sway Farm contract. Here it is. So you can find it on the GitHub link I sent to the chat. And it's, I would say, pretty simple. There is an API with a few methods to create a new player or connect the wallet. We can say level up, buy seeds, plant, harvest, sell items, and also quite a few read methods to make UI work. So it's possible to make UI and game itself work using an indexer, and it would be even faster in terms of getting data. But in this case, they use reading from contract directly. But what's nice, we can see in the code that they added logging to the contract. So we can use these logs to build our indexer. And yeah, if we have over this, not many useful information, but it says log any stack type, so literally anything. So I said before that I want to build a leaderboard for this as an example for hyperindex. And if you remember, the title of the presentation is to how to build a full indexer in less than 5 minutes. And now I think we can actually count the time. So I open a terminal here, and what I want to run is npx envio init. So that's it. The only thing I want to change is to use envio next to have a little bit nicer latest version. So, and after I run it, it asks me, how do you want to name your indexer? And let's say I want to name it Sway Farm Indexer, and also put it in a folder called Sway Farm Indexer. Which language do you want to use? And there are 3 options. You can use plain JavaScript, TypeScript, which is default, and also niche language JavaScript. And we'll stick with TypeScript because it's more popular. We currently support 2 blockchains, and here on full. And here we choose the contract import feature. So currently the contract import feature requests us to select a JSON API file. For EVM, there is a possibility to just simply paste a contract address and we'll do everything for you. And we currently don't have it for fuel because there's still no verified contract, no contract verification. And I have some rumors that the fuel team will release it pretty soon, and it will be nice because it will automatically, when you deploy a contract, will store on the blockchain explorer the API for this contract and the code, so you'll be able to get everything and use it for any means you want. So here it asks us to put an API file, and here I can get it from the Sway Farm project I've cloned, go to the contract directory and find the API in the out debug and contract API file. If you're trying this locally and don't see the out directory, you need to run fork build to actually build your contract and get API. So I hope it will work for you this way. So after we've selected the API file, Envio will prompt us which events we would like to index. So these events are taken from the API it provided. So we don't need to manually get log IDs from it. And let's press left to unselect everything and select only everything we need. And for leaderboard, what we want to know is when the user is created, how many points he has, like how many tomatoes he's sold, and what is the level of the user. And these values changes only on sell item event because it gets point, like the player gets points. When player is created, we actually get a player, and when it levels up, so we can know the level of the player. I think that's enough. So we can press enter and finish the last few steps. So what is the name of the contract? Let's call it Sway Farm. Sorry. And what's the address of the contract? I actually have it in my presentation here down below. I don't know how can I copy this. Let's rely on this feature. I hope it copies it correctly. Initially, I just extracted it from the network request on the Sway Farm application. So let's go back to the terminal and paste the contract address. Okay, thank you for the validation. Oh, actually, it's copied it completely wrong. So let's delete it and I'll copy it properly. Where is this? Sorry for this mess. Yeah, here's the address. Back to the terminal, paste it here, and it asks whether we want to add more contracts since we support indexing multiple contracts and multi-chain, but currently for Fuel there is only one chain. So we say, yes, we are finished. And I need to wait a little bit when it installs first dependencies and generates our indexer. And in this time, I'll take a look at the questions again.
Cool. If you have any questions, let's give it a couple of seconds and maybe a minute or two for them to pop up. Yeah, there's one from Madam. I apologize if you already answered this, but here's a question of what types of events/data have found to be the most useful to index? What are users looking to index the most?
Actually, logging structs, I would say, is the most popular one. And yeah, and the most frequent, the next most frequent request, yeah, and logging structs is the most popular is because you can just log any kind of data and it decodes best using all the possible tools. I mean, in terms of developer experience and types. And also we have some requests from the users to have support for indexing mint, burn, and transfer receipts, which is currently not supported, and it will be in some next releases. So yeah, if you're interested, join our Discord channel. We'll get you updated there. Yeah, you can index different events, but logs are like the most common ones. Yeah, I'll show. Like, the question is, after indexing, do you provide GraphQL endpoint? Yes, we do. And also I see a question from Ahmed. How is indexing of Fuel different or similar to existing solutions like Subgraph and Squids? Actually, it's pretty similar, so it's pretty much the same. There are just some differences for decoding and other Fuel-specific things because some fields are called differently. And yeah, and the difference to Subgraph and Squids is that it's powered by our Hypersync product, which is faster. And if you open our main page, you can see the benchmark comparison of Envio with Subgraph, and Envio is 100 times faster. And it's not just numbers, because, for example, if you index some old protocol which exists on chain for some time, it might take days or weeks to index this graph, and it's hours with Envio. And there is the same mechanism we use for Fuel, so it's very optimized. Okay, I just actually should have installed everything a long time ago. So it says everything's ready, and let's run Sway farm indexer, see how it looks like. So I've opened the project. I'll make it a little bit bigger. Please tell me if it needs to be even bigger. And actually, Envio indexer consists of 3 files. The main one, I'll remove this, is the config, which stores all the data we've provided during the init phase. It says like name, ecosystem full. Also, there is a nice autocomplete using JSON schema, and like we can provide start block, we can provide end block. Want to do this? also it's possible to, when you already have an indexer, you can extend it with more contracts, or you can remove some event or add a new event. But for now, we don't need to do any changes here. We can just continue, don't save it, and take a look at the next important file here. And this is schema GraphQL, which contains all the entities available produced by the indexer. And there was a question whether Envio creates a GraphQL API for the indexer, and the answer is yes. So how does it work? Let's go to the third important file for the indexer, and this is event handlers. And what it does, it allows you to subscribe to an event, and in this case, it's a log of the sell item struct on this Sway Farm contract. And when a transaction with this log is processed, it will run this function, which will get some transaction ID and receipt index from the entity and create a DAM item and store it in the database. So pretty much this indexer already works, but we want to we are not really interested in this empty placeholders for processed events. What we want to have a player entity and to be able to use it for our client. So let's take a look how could possibly be create a player entity and which fields it should have. And it has 3 fields actually. So I'll just copy paste it here and create an entity called player, and I'll add a field called farming skill. Let's use camel case because it's JavaScript and TypeScript way to do this. So we want big int. My AI wants to suggest me a lot of unneeded code. So we want to store farming skill, total value sold, which is also big int in this case, and also we want ID, and we want created at. And what's interesting here is that created at doesn't exist on the storage, so it's just an additional field we can get with the indexers and which we can use for any possible name we want. And let's call it int. So after we've done this, we need to run pnpm code again, so it regenerates types for our handlers. So let's remove everything unneeded. Okay. And you can see that it started complaining, and also so I can safely remove this. So let's start with removing all the events which updates player, and instead start working with a new player handler. And at the end, what we want to create a player entity. So instead of this dummy entity, let's create player. And I've added type, and you can see this type is generated by Envio and can be reliably used by your event handlers written manually. So probably we don't want this for ID, and what we can do instead, we can get player info from the event data. What do we have here? Yeah, so we have event, and on event we have address, and on address we have payload, and we have bits. So, okay, let me take a look at the what we're doing, because probably I throw it myself. So what we are doing, we are starting handling the new player entity, and it only contains the address field, which is the address of the user who connected the wallet. So, and you can see that on the event, we have a decoded data object, which is nicely typed, and you can rely on TypeScript to get the data you want. So we can use the user wallet as an ID for a player, and let's do it this way. Also, it complains on missing farm and skilled and total value sold and created at, so let's add it. So farming skill by default, as I remember, it's 1, and total value sold is 0. So let's use this as default values. And for created at, let's use event.time, and what it is, it's a timestamp of the block. So it's the actual time when the player is created. So that's nice. And we need to just write a few more lines of code to now update the player. So let's do the same. Let's just copy paste this. I think I had to tell you beforehand that we're going to have live coding session. I hope you don't mind. So here event is a little bit more interesting, because it should have not only address, it should also have some more values. And here let's use player info and farm and skill. And for total value sold, we can also get it from player info, which is updated after the transaction is executed. We can verify that it works this way in the contract by taking a look at the what I was writing, sell item. So let's take a look where sell item is locked, and we can see that it modifies the player, and at the end it creates a lock with the sell item struct. And if you're going to build your contract ready for indexing, this is actually the most convenient way to create locks. And so it's convenient to index them afterwards. So here we have a player, and the only problem here is that the created at, we don't want to override it, because the set function will override everything. So what we'll do instead, we will first get a player from the storage, in case we already have it. And if we don't have a player, let's return. Okay, let's do it vice versa. So if we don't have a player, let's just skip this case. Maybe we want to handle it otherwise. But here, what I want to do is simply spread player and only, which we already have in the database, and only update the farm and skill and total value sold. Sorry, my throat is super dry. And actually, I won't think much, and I'll just update, copy paste it for level up, because it logs data in the same format with player info. After we're done, and we are actually done, we can go to the terminal. Oops, not this one. clear it. And we can run npm dev. And it will start running our indexer. And so we can see here that chain ID is 0. And there are 5.5 million blocks on the chain, and we are indexing them pretty fast. So there are already almost 100 events processed in the 2 million of blocks. And there is a GraphQL link provided. So what we can do, we can go to GraphQL, and GraphQL is run by Hasura service. And here it will open the console. The password is testing. I'll write it to you in case you want to do it later. It's written in our documentation, but just in case you're lost here. So here we can actually use all this data aggregated by our indexer using either GraphQL API or read it directly from the like this database view. And let's take a look at what we can do. And to demo this, I've prepared a fun query in my notes. So what it does, it will query all inactive players. So it will aggregate. Oops, what's going on? Interesting. Looks like something from my indexer, but at least it queried into beginning of the chain, to the middle of the chain. I'll take a look at this later. For now, I want to show how it works in general. So the query is aggregates all the players where that value is equal to 0. So it will get all the players with 0 salt value and get the count. Also, there is another active players where the users sold at least something. And what we'll do, we count them and get an average farming skill, created at, and total value sold. And also we'll get top 5 players and sort them by the biggest number of sold tomatoes and get the total value sold and created at. And you can see when we run the query, we can get 187,000 inactive players who connected the wallet but didn't sell any tomato. Also 50,000 active players who actually planted something, and we can get when they were averagely created. Let's get, when was it? Looks like it's in seconds. Oh, sorry. So on average, most of the active players were created 10th of June, pretty recently, considering probably it's true since the testnet launch wasn't this long ago. And also we can get top players, and we can see that they sold really a lot of tomatoes, and average is much lower than this. So, and this is how you can build your UI using this GraphQL API. Also, since it's Hasura, it also can provide REST API. And yeah, also you can store data in a optimized phase where you want. You can create queries with filters you want. And yeah, and probably didn't take 5 minutes for me to create the indexer since I was telling, but the majority of the time were taken to write pretty simple logic of mapping the nicely typed and already decoded events data into entities you want to store. So it's really nice developer experience and pretty fast index creation. So that's nice. And I'll be back to the slideshow since there aren't much time left. Yeah, also we have a hosting service solution. So you can just create a repository on GitHub connected to connect your GitHub repository to our hosting service, and we will automatically deploy the indexer and provide a static GraphQL API you can use for your clients. So you can also save a lot of developer hours for maintaining and deploying an indexer. So it's super nice. Unfortunately, don't have time for demoing it because I want to answer some of your questions. And yeah, there is one of the case studies. So we were talking about decentralized games before. I was demoing how we can use Indexer for it. And here's another nice case study by Spark Finance, which is an order book, and I think one of the biggest the apps currently built on Fuel, and they use our indexer and our hosting service to power their user interface and everything you can see here. So all this data is indexed from their contract by Envio and then provided using GraphQL API. So super nice. Yeah, and here's the slide with links. I think if you want, you can make a screenshot, but in a nutshell, here's my Twitter, Fuel website, and also Envio website, docs, Twitter, YouTube, where you can find more information, like more case studies, more use cases, documentation, how it can be used. So yeah, I can even copy paste it to the chat and start answering the questions if there are some. Okay.
Yeah, let's see if we have a couple of questions, guys, but be prompt because we only have a couple more minutes left. So yeah, don't be shy. If you have anything to ask, Dmitry, now's the time. Looks like somebody's typing. Let's give them a couple of seconds.
Yeah, really enjoyed presenting it to you as well. Okay.
Yeah. Does Envio currently support multi-chain indexing?
Yeah, Envio does support multi-chain indexing for EVM, and there are no multiple chains for Fuel, so it doesn't support it for Fuel yet. But when there are more chains for Fuel, we will do support it.
Cool. Anybody else? What are the advantages of Sway?
Well, first of all, there are no other options if you want to build for Fuel. But I would say it's really thought through to create reliable contracts with a compiler preventing you to make a mistake. And since it's built on Rust, it has a really nice type system and monopoly. Yeah, and also, as I know, it's more performant since maybe it doesn't generate more optimized binary than Solidity, but at least with Rust, it's just more difficult to write worse code. While with Solidity, who's designed with JavaScript in mind, there are no restrictions in writing bad code. At least it's my opinion. Yeah, and I just I like REST scripts and Rust, so it feels more familiar to myself. So I'm opinionated here.
Cool. If there are no more questions, I think we can slowly start wrapping this up. So any final words of wisdom for the audience, Dmitry?
I didn't think about this. You got me first. Yeah, I think the final word that not every protocol or the app needs an indexer, but if your protocol lives quite a long time, it's better to think about it earlier than later. And yeah, I like a quote that every senior developer says it depends when they got a question. Yeah, and it's also the case for here. So think more about the case you currently have. And yeah, I also see a question about REST script. So there were options during initializing JavaScript, TypeScript, and REST script. And yeah, REST script is a niche language. A question is, can EVM work for Tron? No, because they have a little bit different architecture. At least Envio doesn't support Tron yet, but we are working towards the direction of having support for all possible ecosystems. And Fuel is the first non-EVM one, and we are really happy that developers can use it to get access to the really the fastest and top in terms of developer experience indexer. Yeah, I'm not shy selling Envio because it's a really good product.
Amazing. Thank you very much once again. I think this is pretty much it. Thanks to everybody else for coming and for listening in the workshop. We'll see you next Monday for another workshop by Envio, this time with Joss, who will be talking about fast historic data querying with Hyperfuel. Thanks once again to Dmitry for the amazing presentation on data indexing. Have a lovely rest of your day wherever you are, and see ya. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.